Los Angeles Times. Miramax president Harvey Weinstein was admitted to the hospital late at night. The reason for admission is currently unknown, and Harvey Weinstein refused to visit. San Francisco Entertainment. An ambulance drove into the mansion of Harvey Weinstein, a high-rise Miramax, late at night, and is currently being hospitalized because Harvey was accidentally stabbed by a glass. Liberal. Harvey Weinstein fell down the stairs, fractured his left leg, and was rushed to the hospital for treatment. Herald. Harvey Weinstein secretly met with a female model, injured a vital area, and the female partner was too frightened, and the two were both taken to the hospital. Pravda. Harvey Weinstein accidentally slipped and fell while taking a shower, resulting in a rupture of the lumbar vertebrae, and the doctor diagnosed the possibility of paralysis in the second half of his life. Eric was eating his breakfast while reading the newspaper news. Outrageous. One is different from the other, and the injuries are getting worse and worse, from being pricked in the foot to being half paralyzed. Which one do you believe? Dad laughed. Rumors and scandals are a feature of Hollywood, no matter who says it is true. In short, one thing is certain: Harvey's guy must be unlucky. This half-orc, I hope the Herald is telling the truth the most. With this guy's personality as a hungry ghost, he's going to be in pain, ha ha ha. Seeing Eric's gloating appearance, his mother slapped his hand. Don't curse someone, Eric, that's bad behavior. God doesn't allow us to do that. Eric rolled his eyes. God himself doesn't do it. I'll help him curse. His old man should thank me. He should invite me to dinner. Poof. The little nanny Lisa laughed directly, and when she saw her mother's bad eyes, she hurriedly put her posture straight. Realizing that he had lost his words and must not joke with the Lord, Eric explained, "Mom, I curse a bad person, the kind of bad guy who has sores on the top of his head and pus on the soles of his feet." Harvey Weinstein, Hollywood's biggest gangster and sexual assaulter, his biggest hobby is to harass women. You can ask Dad. Charlie Cooper nodded. Eric is right, Harvey. Everyone in his circle knows about it. Since everyone knows, why don't you expose him? Asked Lisa curiously. Eric looked at the babysitter like a chased kitten. If I harass you, but give you a sum of money and threaten you to speak out, you will make your reputation stink and make you a bum. Will you expose me? After hesitating, Lisa shook her head. I don't think I have that courage. At the same time, her heart was roaring. Hurry up, I've been waiting for so long. I've been dressed so cool in the summer, and I haven't seen you violate me. Damn it. Eric shrugged. So, those stars may be high in your eyes, but in Harvey Weinstein's eyes, they are no different from you. After breakfast, Cooper and his son took a car to the company. Dad said, HBO has started urging us to sign a contract, and they want to renew the second season of The Walking Dead. Zach Thomas has called me several times, and the guy wants to ask me out to go on vacation to his winery, but I didn't say yes and kept dragging him. He thought MGM was not satisfied with the price, so he raised the money twice, but the delaying tactic couldn't be used forever. Eric nodded. Drag it out as long as you can. If you can't drag it out, there will be a showdown, and it's impossible to sign a contract with anyone anyway, and we'll broadcast it ourselves next year. Well, Eric, how are your Lionheart preparations? How long will it take to go live? Whoosh! A blue sports car sped by. Eric looked out the window. The exact time is to be determined, but at least in 2 months, MGM's film library has not been compressed and uploaded. I recently purchased a batch of equipment to build a more secure and complete data storage center. Now the focus is still on stabilizing Facebook, and after YouTube and Lionheart are launched, the best result is to be able to achieve direct drainage. Saying that, Eric looked at Shaylee Cooper. Dad, is MGM still rich in funds now? Reluctantly, there are almost $270 million in the liquidity account. Enough for you to do something, Eric. I didn't say you. You should also pay more attention to the financial side when you have time. As a company or even as a group leader in the future, It's not enough to focus on business. You have to be proficient in finance and people. Eric smiled. Isn't there still you? With you as my backing, there's nothing to worry about. No, son, you can't think like that. Learning is a process, and you can't expect me to help you manage the company forever. Charlie Cooper sighed. To be honest, since taking over MGM, I've felt a lot more tired than before. It used to be frustrating to fight with those guys, but now it's more complicated to deal with. I'm almost 60 years old, and sometimes I really feel like I'm overwhelmed. And MGM belongs to you after all, and strictly speaking, I'm also your wage earner now. Eric was a little curious. Dad, why did you suddenly become sad? You were not like this before. Charlie Cooper patted the back of Eric's hand. Son, it's you growing up too fast. I feel like I can't keep up. I'm a little old. And the situation on Joshua's side is not very optimistic. As a father, I can't be too partial, and your mother also said that you have to help him find a way. Then, how do you want to help him? I haven't thought about it yet. Maybe let him also enter the circle as an actor. After all, he is from the Cooper family, and it is not a problem to be a star who eats by his face. Otherwise, I'll give him $10 million to open a company, a sporting goods company. At least he knows a lot about rugby, and it's up to him to do it well. I didn't talk to my dad about my plan with Joshua for the time being. After all, it was just an idea. Coming to the company, Eric got into the editing room and began to continue editing Adele's life. While cutting, I struggled with whether I should contact Theron, mainly because I didn't know what I was talking about and the situation was very passive. After cutting all morning, he also suffered from gains and losses all morning, eating the beef on the plate. Feeling a little unappetizing, he got up and poured it into the trash. Look at the food that has been dumped. Eric, I suddenly realized that I had entered a misunderstanding. What is Lao Tzu's identity now? He must be able and capable. He must have good looks. He must have wealth, and he must have power. I'm the consumer, and Theron is the beef lying on the plate. He eats when he wants, and he can throw it away if he doesn't want to. Without this piece of beef, there are countless pieces waiting for you, and even pork, lamb, dog, and fish. How can you lower your posture in front of her, just because you want to get a woman? I should be the one who takes the initiative and can be equal, but only if you have become my woman. Otherwise, the demeanor I show is just the temperament that my upbringing and quality have given me. Thinking about this, Eric sent a text message directly. Theron, I was drunk yesterday and woke up and looked at the call logs. The two of us seem to have been talking for a long time. Did I say anything that shouldn't have been said? After the text message was sent, he didn't pay attention to it, but called Chen Xing to the office. What is the status of the thing I arranged? Boss, do you mean Jody Chandler? Yes, that's him. I've sent a professional to go to him and he said there will be results within a week, and I think it's going on now. Then urge it and get rid of that kid as soon as possible without breaking the law. Okay, don't worry. Ding. Theron's text came back. Eric, I knew you must have drunk a lot of alcohol and your tongue was knotted. Don't worry, you didn't reveal any trade secrets. Eric replied, What did I say? It's nothing. It's just some very strange words. What are you, a futuristic person? From 20 years from now, you know everything about this world. In short, it's like a science fiction story. Is this your new script? Eric's eyes widened. He patted his broken mouth and said everything. Alas, the wine misunderstands me. In the future, quit drinking. Jersey City, New Jersey. Due to the time difference, it is only afternoon in Los Angeles at this time, and it is already evening here. Jody Chandler walked out of the dining room and felt a little more relaxed after taking off his overalls, but even so, he wanted to quit. Recently, the pressure has been too much, and since the appearance of that documentary, his life has been turned upside down again. The case in 1993 was turned over again, And some Michael Jackson fans tracked him down, and even though 10 years have passed and his appearance has changed a lot, he is still recognized. These people talk about themselves behind their backs, harass them with words, and although they don't do anything, a sense of fear surrounds him. After the release of Jackson's new song, it topped the Billboard within a week and became popular throughout the United States. A lot of people are starting to pay attention to this, and even his colleagues are asking him, is the 1993 case real? Did Jackson really assault you? How much money did you get? God knows. He was only 13 years old at the time, and everything was done according to orders, and then he suffered a lot. As for the money, no matter what others say, he didn't get it anyway, and in the end he got into a commotion and often had to face other people's white eyes and verbal criticism. Knock, knock. Just as he was about to drive home, there was a sudden knock on the glass and a man was standing outside. "Is there anything wrong, sir?" asked Jody Chandler warily, one hand already touching the weapon at his feet. The man politely said that he had no ill intentions and then told Jody about his past. "Son, you're not doing well now, are you? I can help you change this situation. Let's talk." Half an hour later, the two arrived at Jody Chandler's rental house. The man frowned. "This is where you live. What's wrong?" "It's nothing. It's just not the same as you imagined. You should live in a luxury apartment, after all. It's such a big sum of money." Jody Chandler glared at each other and said, "Of course there is a luxury apartment, but in my father's name, he wants me to come and live with me, but I don't like it there, being harassed all day long." The man asked with some mockery, "So what did you get out of that lawsuit?" "Shut up. If you don't tell your purpose again, get out of my territory immediately." The man laughed a few times. "Don't be anxious. You didn't get the money back then, and now someone wants to send you money." "What do you mean?" said Jody Chandler, took a few steps back. The man closed the door. "I have inquired. You are not doing well, but what is the root cause of all this?" "Jody, you must know that the root cause is actually your biological father, Evan Chandler. If it weren't for the fact that he colluded with lawyers and psychiatrists to instigate you to perjury and frame Michael Jackson, everything should not have been like this. You had a happy family, and although that bastard abandoned your mother and son early, you met a stepfather who loved you, but everything was ruined by Evan Chandler. You have a home to go home, and you're only going to annoy your stepdad and mom when you go back, and Evan Chandler is a drug and alcohol maniac whose life has been ruined by that selfish bastard. And now, I have a chance for you to make amends and get you out of the terrible situation you are in." Jody Chandler's eyes flashed with hatred and pain. "Tell me, what do you want me to do?" "It's actually very simple. You just need to tell the truth. You don't need to tell a lie. Be an honest person." Hearing this, fear appeared on Jody Chandler's face. "No, your method is terrible. I will be torn to shreds by Jackson's angry fans." The man approached and patted him on the shoulder and continued to induce. "Child, everything has to go back to the time when it happened. You were only 13 years old in 1993. Remember, you are coerced. You are instigated. What right does a 13-year-old have in the face of his own father and those adults? Just like Jackson, you are a victim of this case. And as long as the truth is known, no one will blame a child. People will only sympathize with you for having such a bastard father. The only one who will really be punished is Evan Chandler. You hate him, don't you?" Jody Chandler looked at the man with some horror. "Who sent you? What the hell do you want to do?" The man just raised a finger slightly. "Attend a court trial and you can get $100,000. If you refuse, the person behind me will completely ruin your life at all costs. Believe me, he is not as kind as Jackson. Is it ruining your bastard father or ruining yourself? Choose it, kids." Eric Anthony Ferrante, that guy still won't compromise and insists on a 5% gross profit share. I'm good, Pema. We've talked to him a few times, but it seems that the box office of Human Eradication and the invitations from outside give him full confidence, and in short, he has a tough attitude. Even if it goes up to $700,000, it's not enough. Ferrante means that the contracts that other companies have given me have dividends. As a veteran of the company's territory, his treatment is not as good as that of outsiders, and he is very dissatisfied and sad. In the office, Warren reported on the progress of AK Films' work in the recent period. Eric sneered, "There are too many wolves that are not well raised. Some people just don't understand how big their butts are and how big their pants are, otherwise they will lose their crotch when they walk." It seems that he really thinks that the success of the movie is his own credit, since he can't cooperate. Don't fight for it, let him fuck me off. Since Warren came to report this matter today, it means that the two of them have given up on Anthony Ferrante. Immediately nodded in agreement. Pema and I also mean the same thing, then we are ready to look for a new director. Well, has anyone chosen? Yes. It is still the director Karen Avery Waynes who is ready to be invited at the beginning of the first part of Sharknado. As you said, the director who can shoot screaming will definitely bring greater breakthroughs and brain holes to Sharknado. Waynes? Didn't he look down on Sharknado? People are going to change. I looked down on it at the time because no one thought that this kind of big bad movie could really be popular, and now when the recruitment information is advertised, many people will squeeze their heads. In addition, in the first half of the year, excluding Human Removal Project, the company shot a total of 15 films, and when it was busy, we had up to 4 crews working at the same time. Eric, I think there is a shortage of manpower here at AK Films, and there are not enough people for 50 people. Eric remembers that he set a goal for AK Films to make 20 copycat movies a year, but he didn't expect to complete 3/4 of them in half a year. However, it will definitely not work to transfer people from MGM. There will be more and more projects here, and the landlord's family will have no surplus food. If you don't have enough manpower, recruit externally, and you can report to me according to your actual needs. Warren took a sip of coffee. Okay, and then there's the question of profit. The total shooting cost of 15 films is $12.37 million, and so far 13 have been successfully sold, and the other 2 are being promoted. The gross profit is $34.99 million, and after deducting shooting costs, taxes, and operating costs, the current net profit is $18.65 million. If these 2 films are sold, the net profit will definitely exceed $20 million. Hearing the figure of $20 million, Eric couldn't help but smile. A bunch of shoddy rags can bring him a profit of $20 million in half a year. Although it can't be compared with excellent movies, it has already made a lot of money. Especially for MGM, which now spends money in all aspects, he doesn't dislike it for a little more. Over the course of a year, assuming that the workload remains unchanged in the second half of the year, the net profit of almost $40 million will already be comparable to Sharknado. The money could be used to support the development and research of Facebook, YouTube, and Lionheart, at least until the end of this year. What's more important is that there is no loss at all. There is no risk of losing money at all. How many such good businesses are there in the world? No wonder other companies are also interested in taking this path. Warren, you've been in the circle for almost a year, running a company. How does it feel? Warren hesitated for a moment. I feel that I understand a lot of things. At least I understand the production process and publicity of a movie, and then I also have some opinions on the market. Anyway, it's more mature, at least not as flustered as when I first took office. Everything has its own process. Eric looked at him with a smile. Maturity is a good thing. Maturity means that you can take on more responsibilities. Have you ever thought about picking a bigger burden? Bigger burden? Eric, what do you mean? Warren's eyes widened slowly. I'm going to set up another film and television company, or operate independently, nominally not affiliated with MGM, but in fact it's the same as AK Films. This company doesn't make copycat movies, but independent films, and its main direction is religion, cults, gender identity, horror, and other niche themes or literary films. If you were to leave AK Films and manage this new company, would you have any confidence? Hearing that he was going to manage a new company, Warren's mind suddenly rang like a big bell. He is no longer a simple rookie a year ago, and many things can be seen more clearly and clearly. Especially after being with Pema Hadi, the other party often transmits him workplace experience. The last time he was at the cinema, he and Pema bumped into Eric and Nico, and Bima Hardy was worried that the union between the two would be suspicious of Eric. Although Eric seemed to be generous and did not hint at anything, it somewhat affected Warren's judgment. Now suddenly a big burden or a fragrant dumpling smashed into his head, saying that there was no suspicion that it was fake. Is Eric testing himself? Is Eric going to break up the two of them? Or does he really trust himself? But with his own qualifications and abilities, there are obviously more suitable candidates in the company, not to mention that the benefits always fall on his head. So what do Judy, Billy, and Bordeaux think of coming out together? Why don't you speak? Seeing Warren in a daze, Eric asked. Eric, although I have a year of experience, I feel that my ability is still insufficient, and I am afraid that it is difficult to be able to run a company on my own now. Taking a deep breath, Warren still rejected the big pie. What's the matter? I don't have confidence in myself? In the company, I trust the four of you the most, but Billy's personality is too jumpy. He can't sit still at all. Maybe he can stabilize in a few years, and he can share a bigger job. Judy can't move for the time being. I have other arrangements for her. Bordeaux didn't do a great job in the marketing department, and I needed to change his position to exploit his potential. I can see your achievements this year, and if you don't have the confidence to take over the new company, you can continue to stay at AK Films. But the burden still has to be added to you. You have to carry AK alone. I plan to transfer Pema to a new company, and her ability to support a new company alone will not be a problem. After Eric finished speaking, Warren's serious expression just now disappeared, and the person immediately smiled. It seems that Eric is not suspicious of the two of them, but really trusts them. Otherwise, he would definitely continue to test and let himself go. The two chatted for a while and asked Warren to tell Pema the news and be mentally prepared in advance. Sending the fat man away, Eric leaned back on the couch and thought about the new company, which was definitely going to be established. Why do Hollywood's big studios have their own independent production and distribution companies? The reason is that business and independence are inherently contradictory. If you want to make money, you have to downgrade the movie rating to G as much as possible. That is, everyone can watch it, and there will be no swear words, blood, violence, abuse, and other scenes in this kind of movie. G-rated movies are given the green light all the way to the world, even the Middle East, and they don't even need to be cut. Independent films or art films are often all R-rated, not to mention conservative countries in the Middle East. Even in the United States, some things that go too far can't be screened, and in the end, they can only go through videotapes. And a big film and television company, if it produces and distributes too many R-rated movies, it is very likely that because of a taboo, such as blasphemy against God and lesbianism, it will be blacklisted in some countries, and then it will be completely banned. The end of being banned is that the G-rated movies produced by your company will not be able to log into the country, and the consequences will be unbearable for many film and television companies. For example, Marvel's Shang-Chi. Disney's arrogance implicated all Marvel movies and was banned by Huaxia, and the relationship was not eased until a new president was replaced. That's why Da Chong needs a branch office to be a fig leaf, although everyone knows that you two were born to a mother. But if the younger brother is blocked, the elder brother will generally not be affected, which is the main reason why many large companies want to have independent branches. In addition, Eric's new company is an independent operation, not a subsidiary, and it is also to be more convenient to control after the company goes public in the future. You know, After the company goes public, you are not alone. Even the largest shareholder, the equity will be greatly diluted. And as the group grows, the equity will be diluted less and less. For example, Samsung Group, Lee Jae-yong actually only owns less than 2% of Samsung shares, but the huge Samsung Group is under his command. Why? Because Lee Jae-yong is playing nested shareholdings, which is also the way many tycoons control companies. For example, Company A has a market value of 1,000 billion, and the largest shareholder of Company A is Company B. So if you control Company B, you can control Company A. But the market value of Company B is 500 billion, which is still too high for the average person. So Company C appeared. Company C is the largest shareholder of Company B, and its market capitalization is only 100 billion, which has shrunk by a factor of 10. But 100 billion is still too much, so it continues to be nested and companies D, E, F, and G appear. Until the emergence of Company H, the largest shareholder of Company G, and the market value of Company H is only 1 billion. 1 billion is something that a rich man can pay, so he became the largest shareholder of Company H. In the end, he can control the large group Company A by controlling Company H and leverage 1,000 billion with less than 100 billion. By the time MGM, Facebook, YouTube, and Lionheart go public in the future, their market value may have exceeded 1 trillion in 10 years. If Eric wants to stay in control of these companies, he needs to go this way. Establish some branches in advance to do a good job of equity nesting and set up camp step by step so that the enemy cannot take advantage of the loopholes. Time flies, and in a blink of an eye, it is the beginning of July. Less than 800 theaters are still showing in the final week of the massive screening of Project Human Eradication. Japan, the last big ticket overseas, also opened a few days ago. Surprisingly, Human Eradication Project was well received in Japan, and Yahoo Pictures scored 3.9, much higher than the 60 or 70% evaluation in other countries. Many comments are saying that it borrowed inspiration from Battle Royale, but it was very American. It was awesome, and the host finally accepted my thoughts and creativity and had to be supported. This is a gift from a father to his son, and it is a great one. Although it has not been screened for a week, it is expected to exceed $20 million. Now, Human Eradication has grossed $93 million in North America, $37 million overseas, and $130 million worldwide. MGM Building, House of Cards, is auditioning. Eric, Andrea, Julio, and 2 people from the audition company sat here. Today is a comprehensive audition, with several important roles to be chosen, but the most important thing is the selection of the heroine Claire Underwood. To be about the same age as Kevin Spacey, the acting skills must also be online. Eric had wanted to invite Julianne Moore, and she fit the bill in every way. Later, I thought about it. An Oscar actor is not good, and another actress may be more troublesome in the future. Later, they simply auditioned publicly, and those who had the ability to play roles came for a walk. However, Eric heard that he knew that he was going to sing against Kevin Spacey, and many actresses who were originally interested in it backed down, and those who dared to appear today had 2 brushes. Thank you, Hatcher. With Terry Hatchell leaving, Andrea looked at Eric. I think Hatcher is capable of both image and acting skills. Eric shook his head slightly. To be determined, her short hairstyle is too cold, and she is more like a killer than a politician. Next. The door opened, and another with short hair walked in, Felicity Huffman, who, like Terry Hatcher, would become a desperate housewife in the future. After trying on a few looks and performing a scene, Huffman walked out. Everyone else looked at Eric. The acting skills are okay, but the shape still doesn't match the image in my heart. It's too soft. Hatcher is too murderous. She is lacking murderous. Next. The 15th with short hair came to the interviewer, Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City. Luo generously walked through a scene, talked about his understanding of the characters, won the approval of everyone, and expanded the scope to be determined. Soon the audition went on for another hour, and as the 26th actress walked in, Eric's most anticipated person appeared. Robin White from Forrest Gump. 37-year-old Robin White and Kevin Spacey stand together and match, but they don't know how to act. Robin, what kind of person do you think Claire is? Independent, intelligent, calm, and ambitious, and more like partners with her husband. This is more obvious than the attributes of husband and wife. Eric nodded. Do you usually like to watch the news? Do you pay attention to politics? Robin White smiled and asked, Director, don't you know that Hollywood is the stronghold of the Democratic Party? Everyone couldn't help but laugh. This is indeed a long-standing tradition. Well, you're confident. I like confidence. Politicians are confident. Come and give it a try. Liu cooperated with the reading of the lines. Robin White instantly entered the role. His expression changed, and his whole style changed. 5 minutes later, after a short scene, she immediately switched states and grinned and asked, How is it? I practiced very seriously at home. Eric stood up and walked over, stretched out his hand and said, Welcome to House of Cards. Boss, the bidding for the factory has been completed, the formalities have been completed, and now the ban has been lifted, and the construction team has officially entered. On the phone, Susan reported on the progress of the project on the Huaxia side. Listen to your tone, everything seems to be going well. In Leonard's restaurant, Eric was sitting in a private room, and the seat across from it was still empty. Yes, boss, the Huaxia government department is very efficient, and I thought that the procedures that would have to be delayed for a long time went surprisingly smoothly. Those officials were very friendly and polite, and if it weren't for the special period, they would have been able to start work a long time ago. And you know what? There is no need for environmental protection equipment here, and factories can start production at will, without worrying about pollution. Oh my God, the regulations are so loose that I am surprised that the same factory will take 3 years to build in the United States, and it will be completed in 1 year here. Susan praised the efficiency of the Chinese side, and it was 2003, which was the time to vigorously develop the economy, especially since MGM was still foreign-owned. Who dares to embarrass her at such a time? It is purely blind. The old birthday star eats arsenic and looks for death. Eric laughed and said, So I said, Huaxia is not as bad as the Americans think, although the material conditions are a little bit behind the United States, but Yanjing is not lagging behind. You're right, boss. I'm going to bring my husband and children here to have a look. The history of this country is really shocking. At this moment, the door was pushed open, and Theron walked in a blue one-piece hip skirt with a pair of white sandals on his feet. Eric looked up and saw the pair of slender legs that were surprisingly long. Glancing down, if those feet were not too big and small were seen by Quentin Tarantino, they would definitely be unable to help but lick them. Theron sat down, put his bag aside, and saw Eric on the phone, politely not making a sound. Holding his cheeks in his arms, he took a sip of the juice in his glass, and then looked at him quietly. Eric winked at Theron, who smiled and motioned for him to continue. However, the big beauties are here, and Eric doesn't want to continue to have a good relationship with Susan, so he said directly, I am relieved that the factory is under normal construction, and you have to keep an eye on the project. Transformers is released in November, and I am ready to synchronize it on the Huaxia side, otherwise piracy will occupy the market within a week. As soon as the movie is released, the merchandise sales start immediately, and we have to get a head start, otherwise it won't be long before piracy will run rampant. Susan, remember, you have to do a few things before that. First of all, I had to get at least a few production lines that could work, and a complete factory was unrealistic, so I asked for production while building. The equipment is ordered in advance, and the conditions are ready to start work as soon as they are met, and I will send you some skilled workers from the United States to bring new people. Susan, the market in China is huge, and the consumption power of first and second-tier cities is enough to afford the price of genuine peripherals. As for small cities, don't consider high-end toys such as figurines, but clothes, trinkets, school supplies, etc. can be eaten, and you can find a reliable local company to do OEM. Remember to check the quality of the product, even if it is an OEM, but as long as it is hung with our logo, I don't want shoddy products. In addition, from now on, you have to connect with those large shopping malls and supermarkets, and we also need to gradually open up our own sales channels. After Eric finished speaking, Susan replied solemnly, "Okay, boss, I will definitely do it." Well, is there still a problem? If not, hang up, I still have important things to do here. Finding that there was no sound on the other side, Eric said, "If you have a problem, just say it." "Okay, boss, I'm just very strange. The right to produce and sell toys is in Hasbro. Isn't it an infringement when we do this?" "You don't have to worry about this matter. Let you do it, I have a reason." "Okay, that's fine." Hanging up the phone, Eric put the phone aside. Susan had already expected the problem and also talked seriously with Sergei Halsenfeld. At present, Hasbro does not have any business in Huaxia at all, and people simply look down on poor Huaxia. In this case, with the relationship with Sergei, it is not difficult to get a qualification. Of course, Sergei can't be the master of the company's affairs, but he can still handle a small authorization from a third-world country. It's just that the factory will definitely not use MGM's name at that time, and it will not be related to each other on the surface, and it will not be reported to Alan Hassenfeld to know. After all, this old man is over 70 years old, and he has long passed the age of being able to do everything. Now Eric and Sergei talk on the phone to strengthen their relationship, at least once a month to New York, or invite each other to spend 2 days together. Yeah, in order to win him over, she is even more intimate than the women around her. At the moment, Eric is looking for the right moment to create a chance for the old boy to meet Kate Winslet. If you can pull Winslet's pimp into it, it fills Sergei's emotional void for many years. Coupled with his long-accumulated anger towards Alan Hasenfield, Sergei can fight for this guy at critical moments, and he is very sure to be on his side. "Done?" asked Theron. Eric hummed and began to carefully observe what the other party was dressed today, and found that Theron was wearing light makeup. Maybe it's out of habit, or maybe it's out of respect, but a woman's willingness to wear makeup for a man is a good sign. Sounds like a lot of business. I invested in a factory in Huaxia, and I also set up a film and television company to arrange some business work. Then I'm not bothering you, you can continue, it's still early anyway. Eric waved his hand. No, didn't I just say on the phone, there is something very important to do, and now is the time to do it. Hearing this, Theron turned his head to look to the side a little shyly, and this sentence tasted a little flirtatious. Although she was a little happy in her heart, she didn't feel very suitable. After all, she was a person with a boyfriend. Although there is a gap between the boyfriend and the man opposite, to be precise, there is a big gap regardless of age, appearance, talent, status, and power, and he is crushed. But how to say that the two have also been together for more than a year, and she has feelings for Stuart Townward. "You're so beautiful, Theron, today. This dress makes you look beautiful and sexy." Eric continued to praise sweetly, and Theron smiled slightly. "Then you should wait until I lose weight to observe. Then I will be even sexier." The words blurted out made Theron can't help but beat himself in his heart. Damn. How can you respond to him? Don't. The corners of Eric's mouth raised. Then I have to take a serious look at it then. I want to ask you something. Do you know Kate Winslet? Well, we met when I attended events before, and we have a good relationship for several years. That's great. Can you introduce the two of us to each other? Eric slapped his thigh, and he found an opportunity. Hearing this request, Theron was immediately alert. The current Kate Winslet has not yet made a fortune. The two are actresses of the same age, and the other party is a sexy and beautiful goddess. And in terms of popularity, after that big ship, he is an absolute first-line name in the world, and he is a few ranks behind. Eric asked her suddenly, which naturally made Theron feel a little abrupt and uncomfortable. Without a direct response, Theron pretended to be unintentional and asked, "What do you want to do with her?" "It's not about the movie. A friend of mine, in fact, he admires Kate Winslet very much, and after watching the Titanic, he was fascinated by Winslet. He's been pestering me since a few months ago, hoping that I can help him create a suitable opportunity." Eric kept things simple, and by the way concealed the fact that Sergei was married, and Theron understood. Knowing that it wasn't Eric who was interested in Winslet, she suddenly felt relaxed and a smile on her face again. "No problem, but it's too deliberate and awkward to meet alone. I'll think about it, find an opportunity to gather everyone together. Whether you can grasp it or not is up to your friend." Eric's eyes were electrified. "Thank you, you did me a big favor, Theron. It's not clear if Sergei can take the opportunity, but I would love to take it." "Seize the opportunity. What?" Theron asked, hesitantly. "Guess." Looking at each other, the air in the room gradually drifted away. Neither of them spoke, just looked at each other, and seemed to say everything. Knock, knock. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and the waiter served the food with a plate. Theron hurriedly lowered his head and took a deep breath. "Damn, what's going on? Is this guy a succubus? Why can't I control myself?" After the meal, Eric watched Theron leave. As a veteran of the love field, he can naturally feel the subtle changes in the attitude of this big beauty. In order to be able to capture Theron's heart, he not only took the initiative himself, but also mobilized the people around Theron to assist. That's right, it's her again, Eric's wingman Pyjekins. When filming Transformers, Patty covered herself and hid it from Godot, and this time it was naturally obligatory. "What? You don't agree? I think it's a bit unethical. Add $5 million to the publicity fee. Do you do it?" "No problem, my great boss. I'll hit wherever you point." On the way back to Beverly Hills, the phone called, and Eric glanced at it. It was my button. He was a little strange that my co rarely called him at night. Once plugged in, turn on the hands-free. "Hey, what's wrong?" On the other side was a very deep voice. "Eric, Neverland has been raided by the Santa Barbara City Police Department, and Tom Schneider suddenly broke in with someone. I'm being held in the police station for investigation right now, so if it's convenient for you, help me take a look inside the manor." Although my button's voice was not loud, his trills could be heard, and Eric was immediately furious. These guys, sure enough, are still here, and they won't stop if they don't die. "Don't worry, I'll be right over." "Okay, when you get there, you can contact lawyer Tom Mercerios. He is very good and trustworthy." It's not yet 9 o'clock in the evening, and the roads of Los Angeles are still full of traffic. Suddenly, a black Wrangler swerved its tail and turned around, completely ignoring the traffic rules, and then sped off into the distance amid a wave of surprise and abuse. Usually it takes more than 2 hours to drive, but there are fewer people at night, plus Eric stepped on the accelerator to the end. The new car, which was launched only last year, showed excellent performance, and he arrived in Santa Barbara in less than 2 hours. In Neverland, Eric stands in front of a middle-aged man with white hair and glasses, who is Tom Mercerios, the lawyer mentioned by my button. Tom's name is Tom, who has chosen justice, and Tom Schneider is a mad dog. The two shook hands, and Tom Mercerios spoke. "Mr. Cooper, Jackson said you were his best friend and worthy of trust." "Lawyer Mercerios, my buckle also told me that you are a lawyer with a sense of justice and will not give in to evil." Tom Mercerios nodded. "Well, since Jackson thinks we can all be trusted, I hope we can work together to rescue him. I'll tell you a little bit about it first. Jackson had an event in San Francisco today, and it was over early. And while he was not at Neverland, Tom Schneider came to the door with the police to search, and the rest of the manor was powerless to stop him. When Jackson found out, he hurried back in the afternoon, but he was arrested by Tom Schneider before he could enter the door and is now being detained at the police station. I also got the news not long ago, and I rushed over right away, and I have already met with him. I was going to get Jackson out of the police station first, but he told me to come to you, and that's probably it. As they spoke, the two of them had already arrived at Micah's residence. This is the focus of the search, and they are eager to find Jackson's privacy from it, Mayor Sirios said. Walking inside, Eric's calmed emotions burned again. The living room was in chaos. The sofas, cabinets, stalls, and wall decorations were all thrown to the ground. The floor was covered with debris, and many things were cut by sharp objects. Son of bitch, scolded angrily, and the two walked up to the second floor, first Micah's collection room, which was full of his collection of fine toys, figures, CDs, and comics. Many of them were gifts from friends, and Eric also saw dolls and records from little Elizabeth the last time he came. But now it's all shattered to the ground. Then he went to his bedroom, which was even more devastated, even worse than being ransacked. Does Miko know? Mysterio shook his head. I don't know yet. If he saw all this, he would definitely faint with heartache. He told me something that he hoped wouldn't be found by the police. Saying that, Mayor Sirios began to search, and after a long time, he finally took out a very detailed camera in the corner, which was really impossible for professionals to find. Later, several more were found in other areas. It's good that this thing is here, he said, that you suggested the installation, but I didn't expect it to really come in handy. But unfortunately, the rest of the manor has been closed. What do you want to do? Eric immediately asked. Anyway, let's go to the police station and get Jackson out first. Tom Schneiderming apparently malicious. I fear he will use illegal means. Illegal? Is this legal now? Of course it's not legal. They shouldn't have searched Jackson in the first place. The premise was wrong, let alone so violent. Eric nodded. In other words, the police are completely unreasonable, right? Yes. Okay, since they have used the means, then I will also use some means to be rude. Mercerio frowned. Mr. Cooper, what do you want to do? Eric looked ahead coldly. Of course, let the other party pay the price. At least let Schneider's son of a bitch raise it, and you can't interfere in the trial later. Over the video evidence to Eric, Lawyer Mercerio hurried to the police station. Eric looked gloomily at the staff of Neverland behind him, all of whom were now in a state of sincere fear. But it's not to blame them. In the face of dozens of policemen with guns, symbolizing the public power of the country, who dares to resist? Waved his hand. Go all of you. Pay attention to protect the scene. Don't let people enter casually, especially Micah's room, remember? Everyone nodded yes and returned to their posts. Everyone was gone, and Eric looked at the time. It was almost 11 o'clock. The night was still long and sufficient. Dialed Chun Xing's phone directly, and the other side was instantly connected, and he was always paying attention at any time. Chun Xing, arrange a few things for you, remember clearly. Okay boss, please speak. First of all, send my order. Immediately mobilize 5 open-air projection vehicles, the largest model, and bring all the equipment to the Dream Estate in Santa Barbara. Boss, what time is it? Right now, call the relevant employees immediately. Is there a problem? No problem. The second thing, you look up what businesses, what companies are around the Santa Barbara City Police Department, and I need to rent their space. The third thing, contact landmark buildings, NASDAQ big screens, Times Square, Sunset Boulevard, Fifth Avenue, and other high-traffic areas. Rent advertising space for me. Don't skimp on money, the more the merrier. The fourth thing, find a middleman and hire a group of people, the more the better. assemble on time at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and then besiege the Santa Barbara City Police Department in batches to protest. The last thing, contacting internet companies such as Yahoo and Google, is also buying me advertising space. As for why I asked you to do these things, I'll give you a video. Just watch it, and after watching it, give me the initiative to make things bigger, remember? And don't forget the major TV stations. They don't like to chase hot spots. This time I will create big melons for them to eat. Remember, boss. Okay, let's do it now, hard work. Hanging up the phone, Chun Shing immediately got out of bed, quickly got dressed, and prepared to go out. He felt anger in the tone of Eric's voice, and he didn't know what was really going on. He had been with Eric for more than half a year, and it was the first time he had seen his boss make such a big move. Son, what are you going to do at such a late hour? The company has urgent matters to deal with. Parents, you should rest early. I'm still going to work overtime. Will I come back? Asked my mother, a little distressed. I guess I can't come back. That's it. I'm leaving. At Neverland, Eric dialed a second time, this time to Fitz Heitenberg. Boss, I'm Fitz. Eric didn't talk nonsense to him either. You come to the Neverland in Santa Barbara right away, and there is something for you to do. Fitz Heitenberg looked confused. What the hell was going on this big night? Boss, what's the matter? You know my relationship with Michael Jackson. Everyone knows that you two are good friends. Yes, now that Jackson's home has been hacked into by the police. I've got a video here. You can come and see it, and then work on away, and tomorrow I'm going to let all the Facebook users know about it. Sensing the murderous aura in Eric's words, Fitz didn't dare to slack off and hurriedly agreed. Hanging up the phone, Eric looked up at the sky. It was a little cloudy and stuffy, and he couldn't see the stars. If he wants to force public power to make concessions, with the resources he has now, the only thing he can use is public opinion. It just so happened to be a rehearsal before the war with Sony Music. Waiting until after 2 o'clock in the morning, Fitzsaitzenberg arrived at Neverland first. Jumping out of the car and arranging for the driver to rest, the two found a notebook and began to watch the video. Because it was shot at close range and the things used by the My Buckle were relatively advanced, the clarity of the video was very good, and it was possible to accurately see the appearance of each police officer. Fitz, now Facebook can only send text and pictures, and videos are definitely not good. But I want to use Facebook as an excellent information dissemination platform. Do you have a good way? Before Fitz came, he asked what he was going to do, just to think about what to do on the road. He is a person with a lively mind, and he has a countermeasure in his heart. Boss, as a social media, in principle, should not be partial. Once the fairness is lost, it will inevitably cause some people to get bored. Fortunately, we are on the side of justice in this matter, which will make the resistance a lot less, but it still can't be too blatant and needs a fig leaf. But the good thing is that we're the first software, and there's no precedent before, so it's a good excuse to figure out how to run it. I was thinking about simply editing the incident briefly, then taking a few screenshots of the surveillance and sending them to all Facebook users. But you can't just show solidarity with Jackson, you have to package it, for example, by launching a social poll about whether public power can be abused. There are a couple of options that can be designed below, and Americans like to vote, and at least it looks much more comfortable anyway. After speaking, Fitz looked at Eric. Boss, how about my suggestion? Eric couldn't think of a good way for a while, and said very simply, it's hard for you to come up with a plan in such a short time. Just do what you say. Okay, Facebook now has a user base that includes almost all colleges and universities in the United States, and college students are easy to incite and have a strong sense of justice, so I think it will work well. With that, he took matters into his own hands and began to write tweets sentence by sentence. Eric watched from the sidelines and found that his diction was very elaborate and seemingly neutral, but it was inflammatory, and he was secretly criticizing. How do you describe it? It's similar to the various investigative reports issued by the government. Fitz, do you know this? Eric was a little surprised. Fitz smiled slightly. Boss, I have not only done technology, but also done planning and public relations before, but I finally chose technology, so I understand a little. What a talent! The 21st century needs people like you. Boss, you go to the rest meeting, I'll call you after it's done, and you will review it. Eric nodded and couldn't help but sigh that the taste of power in hand is good. A word can make a large number of people get up in the middle of the night to serve you. When it rises on its own in the future, how can YouTube and Facebook be satisfied and make Twitter, Ins, Douyin, and the like all come out? Then it's better to lobby Congress to amend the antitrust law. Of course, this is too difficult. Then Disney lobbied Congress to amend the copyright law and extend Mickey Mouse's copyright. A lower one is to allow the existence of some competitors, but not to allow the other party to become bigger and stronger. The position of the leading boss must be held by himself, and the mainstream voice channel must be in his own hands. At that time, see who dares to make small moves, first block your account, and then launch cyberviolence. The other party will feel that there are enemies all over the world and on all sides, and if you don't scold you will also die socially. According to memory, the war of public opinion will only become more and more important and better in the future. A democratic and free country, a free speech, a beacon. Lying on the couch, he quickly fell asleep, and after some time, he heard someone call him, and Eric opened his eyes. Boss, I've already written the tweet. Take a look. Shaking his head, Eric looked at the time. It was only past 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. He bred up his spirits and read the article carefully, and after reading it, he looked at Fitz Heitenberg even more highly, and secretly sarcastically and critically, which was too right, and this was what he wanted. Thinking about the 3 people he recruited, the most capable one at the moment is undoubtedly Fitz, and Robert Mirren can also do it, but Howard Hughes can only do technology, and don't think about managing the company with his character. Good job. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, all staff will be pushed on time, and don't forget the final voting results. You look at the data. We have to start and finish. Fitz nodded. I understand what to do, and the boss has one more thing to report to you. Regarding the celebrity fan ranking event that you arranged, I think it's a good opportunity now, and this event is bound to make more people sympathize with Jackson. At this pinch, his fan base is bound to skyrocket, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with being number one. But it's not a waste of the event to just list the before and after, and I suggest that the top 10 candidates be pushed and compile their biographies so that more people can get to know them. This suggestion can be seen at a glance, and it is naturally rushed to promote, clarify, and even myth. Eric thought for a moment. It's a great idea, but I have a worry. Will the so-called over-the-top and frequent push cause people to rebel? Fitz laughed and said, It's a big deal that we're only going to do it this once. Isn't the understanding of the majority more valuable than the rebellion of the few? Makes sense, so do it. After more than half an hour, the outside of the Dream Manor ushered in strong lights, and 5 large open-air projection vehicles arrived, accompanied by hundreds of MGM staff. The head of logistics, Asherkin, walked quickly to Eric with a few people to report for duty. Boss, the equipment is here. It is the most advanced in the company. You can arrange anything. Eric handed him the USB flash drive and pointed to the inside of the gate of Neverland. Let a car spread out in this position, and then play the video inside the USB flash drive. A few other cars. Eric was about to call Chen Xing to ask about the progress of the matter, and as soon as he touched the mobile phone, the little guy himself called first. Chen Xing, how are things going? Boss, everything else has been done. Only the landmarks such as Times Square and the Nasdaq screen are left. I will contact them during the day. As long as the money is enough, it is not a big problem. Well done. Keeping an eye on what's next. Eric complimented. He turned his head to look at Asherkin. Take the remaining 4 cars to the vicinity of the Santa Barbara City Police Department. Chen Xing will tell you the location. Don't attract attention for the time being. When the day comes, I'll try to force the police to hold a press conference, and then I'll go with them, and I'd like to see what those guys look like. Asherkin took the order to leave, and after a while of busy work, the projection car was finally ready. I saw a huge electronic screen supported by several brackets and sent into the air, and then the picture changed, and the surveillance video of the police wreaking havoc appeared on the screen. Eric nodded. Very good. This is the effect he wants. A few hours have passed, and my co has been detained at the police station for more than 12 hours. However, with lawyer Mathirio by his side, those strips would definitely not dare to mess around. Generally speaking, a person is released after a summons detention of up to 24 hours, with half a day left. As the time approached 9 o'clock, the streets became crowded and the police station began to work normally. But the 2 police officers, who were holding donuts and eating them as they walked, clearly felt that something was wrong, and they noticed that the crowd seemed to be gathering towards the police station intentionally. Influential media outlets such as the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, Fox News, and ABC Online have also arrived one after another. Yesterday afternoon, after my co was detained, in fact, several local tabloids had blocked the entrance of the police station. However, the influence of these tabloids is too weak to open the door of the police station at all, so I can only wait, hoping that my button can seize the opportunity to interview when he is released. And as Eric got through the news, in the middle of the night, websites such as Yahoo News and Google successively published the news that Neverland was raided and my buckle was taken away. These big newspapers were keenly aware that there was going to be big news, and the child molestation case, which had been silent for a while, must have ushered in a major change, and they drove to Santa Barbara overnight by plane. Behind the media, more and more people crossed the street to the police station, some carrying simple signs with words against discrimination and against the private use of public power. The number of people is growing and the scale is getting bigger. 100, 200, 300, gradually increased to 500, and finally the number was so large that it was impossible to count. Among them were not only Eric's hired people, but also many close fans of Maiku, and the open space and streets in front of the police station were blocked. Many people who hang out or go to work have to stop and watch the excitement all over the world, and these people also join in. Fantasy Manor. The black Aunt Seti came over with a plate. She is the old man here. Mr. Cooper, have a bite to eat. I see you've been busy all night without rest. Looking at each other, Eric picked it up. A glass of milk was drunk without a pair. Alas, poor Maido, there are always people who want to harm him. There are always people who don't want to let him go. Mr. Cooper, why hasn't Maido come back? Will he be in trouble? Eric shook his head slightly. No, don't worry, City. Mr. Cooper, will you get him out? Eric hummed softly, looked at the time, pulled his phone out of his pocket, and a text message that had been edited was sent. Santa Barbara City Police Department, Chief Brown Howard, 43, was just appointed chief of police by the city just last year. At this age, he is experienced, and he is the year to fight, and the future is promising. But yesterday something happened that caught him off guard. Prosecutor Tom Schneider actually locked up the big star Michael Jackson, or because of the child molestation case. By the time Brown Howard found out about it, it was too late and everyone was taken to the police station. The U.S. judicial system is independent and prosecutors are almost the most powerful officials in the criminal justice system, exercising enormous, almost unfettered discretion. At the same time, just as the state, county, and city do not rule over each other, so do prosecutors, who are accountable only to their own level of government. There is a very real example. Daobao was once investigated by New York County prosecutors for hush money incidents, and the other party's purpose was naturally to send him to prison to prevent him from continuing to run. A county prosecutor can issue an arrest warrant and directly arrest the former president, just because you committed crimes on my territory, and the prosecutor in the United States is so good. The prosecutor and the police are two systems, and the latter is obliged to cooperate with the former in handling cases. Both are generally appointed directly by the city government, so as the director, Howard is indeed a bigger officer than Tom Schneider. But the embarrassing thing is that he has no power to restrain the other party, only the city government. But the man was brought to his turf, but the trouble had to be borne by him, and that was Michael Jackson, the king of pop who had countless fans. So Bron Howard deliberately didn't go home and stared at the bureau in case Tom Schneider did something irrational. This guy's prejudice against Jackson has long spread among their group, and no one knows why, but he is like that. Sitting in a large, comfortable chair, Howard ate the breakfast brought by his subordinates. Against abuse of power. Against racial discrimination. Against violent law enforcement. Suddenly there was a violent roar outside, and Brown Howard was excited, and the sandwich in his hand fell to the ground with a clatter. He listened carefully, walked to the window, pulled up the blinds, and saw that a large number of people had gathered at the entrance of the police station at some point, and it was still increasing. The men held up placards and shouted slogans, clearly in solidarity with Michael Jackson. Especially when he saw the front of the crowd, many big media set up cameras, and the long guns and short guns were all pointed at, and he instantly felt that his head was big. Fuck. I knew something was going to happen. This bastard got in trouble, but he wanted me to wipe his ass. Hurriedly called a few deputy directors and captains to come over for a meeting. A few minutes later, only 3 people came. Why is it just you? Director, I just contacted Charles. He's stuck outside, and he's trying to figure out how to get in. Won't you come in through the back door There were a lot of people around the back door, and there was a lot of media, not just Charles, but a lot of us were blocked out. Brown. Howard pointed outside. What are these people going to do? Who knows? Didn't they say they wanted to keep it secret? Who leaked that Michael Jackson was locked up here? A captain walked in with a notebook. Director, look at this. Brown Howard looked at the screen, and the interface above was Yahoo News, and the entertainment and social sections were all hanging high about the unfair treatment of my buckle. However, there is no video for the time being, only pictures of the damaged Neverland are attached. Santa Barbara City Police raid Michael Jackson's Never Show Manor and vandalize personal belongings. The prosecutor abused his power and violently searched the Neverland, and Michael Jackson was suddenly taken away. When will the justice system remain impartial? A violation of any lawful citizen is being staged. Brown Howard's eyes widened as he looked at the headlines, especially at the sight of the ruined hurricane-like room. Why are there pictures like this? Are they going to rob them? Call Schneider to me. Forget it, I'm going to find him. The group hurried to the interrogation room and found that Tom Schneider had begun the interrogation again. However, with lawyer Mercerio by his side, he did not dare to go overboard, and the inducement and guiding language were also debunked on the spot. Bang! The door to the interrogation room was pushed open. Tom, come out with me. Seeing the police chief with an unkind face, Tom Schneider felt a little bad. Although the other party has no power to control himself, a harmonious relationship is still necessary, otherwise no police officer will cooperate with him when the other party gives an order. Mercerio smiled and looked at my buckle. Looks like we'll be able to get out soon. In the next room, Director Brown looked angrily at the man in front of him. Tom Schneider, look at the good things you have done. As an experienced prosecutor, how can you be so lax in the process of handling the case? Conducting a search without Michael Jackson being present. Do you know that he is not a criminal yet? He is protected by law. And search for search, why the scene is being destroyed in a mess. Look at the good things you have done. Tom Schneider hurriedly looked at the news in his notebook and was immediately shocked. I've heard that there are a lot of cameras installed in Neverland. You are really daring. Now that the outside is full of reporters and people, you have to give them an explanation. The Santa Barbara Police Department will not give you a black pot. Signaling the other party not to be angry yet, Tom Schneider seriously recalled yesterday's situation and carefully studied the photos. After a while, he suddenly grinned. Director Brown, there's no need to make a fuss. In my opinion, this is just a shoddy blame. Hee. Neverland does have cameras, but they're all blocked by us by technical means. I investigated before I went. Otherwise, why do you think I dare to make such a big fanfare? Of course I understand the threat of public opinion. Are you sure? Said Brown Howard, looking at each other suspiciously. Pretty sure, and if you look closely at the photos, it's just some broken furniture, and there's no human figure at all, so who can prove that we did it? Who dare to say that it was not Michael Jackson who deliberately damaged the house himself in order to frame the police? After Tom Schneider finished speaking, everyone present seemed to be enlightened. It made sense. Wouldn't it be reversed? As for whether Jackson was in Neverland at the time, although he was not there, many of the staff he hired were there, and it was not really unmanned. This may be procedurally flawed, but it is not fatal and barely plausible. Thinking of this, Tom Schneider said confidently, "Those people outside, I'm going to settle them, and it just so happens that I also want to use these media to build momentum." The entrance of the Santa Barbara City Police Department, hundreds of people shouted for the release of Mike Ewell, and the crowd was excited for a while. Television stations were busy recording the scene and interviewing people who were in solidarity with the protesters. The group of people hired by Chun-Shing have undergone simple training in advance and know what to say and what not to say, not to mention that there are many real fans mixed in. They angrily expressed their opinions, telling the police about injustice. In the midst of the chaos, the door of the police station opened, and Tom Schneider and several police officers walked out. He picked up the microphone and shouted, "Quiet. Everyone is quiet. Listen to me. I will give you an explanation." Seeing that the police were finally about to respond positively, the crowd gradually quieted down. "Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Schneider, the Santa Barbara City attorney and the head of the Michael Jackson child molestation case. You can ask me any questions." Hearing this, the reporter of the Los Angeles Times was the first to speak. "Prosecutor Schneider, may I ask the person who arrested Michael Jackson yesterday and raided Neverland? Is it you?" Tom Schneider shook his head. "Miss Reporter, I want to correct your wording. Jackson is not a prisoner at present. This is not an arrest, just a normal summons and inquiry. In addition, the raid you mentioned is also very inaccurate. We are routinely going to Neverland to check. There is a search warrant." As he spoke, he took out a piece of paperwork, and there was a wild slap below. "Prosecutor Schneider, do you mean that you say that Jackson is not a prisoner at the moment, which means that he is likely to become a prisoner?" Behind Schneider, several police officers involved in the interrogation were secretly cursing. "After a night of interrogation, I got a fart in my hands, and there was a barrister next to me, but Mao didn't ask anything. And after searching in the fantasy manner for a long time, no evidence of Mao was found. I found a few Playboy magazines, all of which were mature and sexy girls, but didn't this prove in disguise that Jackson's sexual orientation was normal?" But Tom Schneider opened his mouth like this, and he said with a straight face, "I can't disclose the details of the case, but what I can tell you is that both the investigation and other aspects are going well, and we have obtained evidence, and I believe that there will be a result soon." Hearing this, everyone present immediately looked at each other. In the eyes of ordinary people, the case is progressing smoothly, which means that the investigation has been clear, which means that Michael Jackson has most likely admitted the crime. In fact, this is the usual method of the police, using ambiguous words to create smoke bombs and put pressure on the subject of the investigation by confusing the public, which is what Tom Schneider called a momentum. Looking at the commotion of the crowd below, Tom Schneider nodded secretly and turned around to leave. Wait, Prosecutor Schneider, you have two key questions that you haven't answered. ABC online reporters shouted. What's the problem? Do you know anything about the news that is circulating on the internet right now? Tom Schneider looked light. I know, I've been paying attention. And how do you explain it? Clearing his throat, Tom Schneider said confidently, I don't think there is a need to spend a lot of words and explanations because people with independent thinking will not be confused by rumors on the internet. First of all, the question of whether Jackson was there or not. I admit that he was not there at the time, but the online news did not tell everyone that there were more than a dozen people in the manor at that time, and they were all hired by Jackson, and they were by no means empty as everyone imagined. The search was carried out in their witness, and the process was not illegal. And then there are those pictures, which in my opinion is ridiculous, and it is completely untenable to say that the police are violently searching with just a few pictures of smashed things. I can assure you that yesterday's search was all legal and compliant, and there was absolutely no violence. So how do you explain the photos? The Fox News reporter continued. After a moment of silence, noticing that everyone was looking at him seriously, Tom Schneider slowly spoke. Quite simply, I have reason to suspect that it is Michael Jackson himself who caused all this. By instructing his employees to deliberately destroy his property, his aim was to frame the police in order to attract attention, gain sympathy, and clear his name, which is a common tactic used by many prisoners. Tom Schneider accentuated the word prisoner. At that time, there was no third party in the Neverland except for us, so this was a blatant slander and a provocative blasphemy against the prosecutor and the police. I want you to be able to keep your senses and learn to think, and you don't see even a single policeman in the photo. Isn't that enough proof? The photos are clearly taken after the fact. They are reshots. They are reshots with other purposes. After Tom Schneider explained, the reporters present suddenly felt that it made sense, and in the absence of a third party, everyone naturally stood on their own side to speak. Then there is a real good chance that Michael Jackson's side will fabricate the facts. Especially in this era, there is no law enforcement recorder, which is interesting, and the direction of the wind may change. And just when Tom Schneider turned the situation around with an indefatigable tongue and was complacent, a man wearing a mask in the crowd suddenly shouted, Prosecutor Schneider, do you really dare to guarantee that you have not done anything and all the procedures are legal? Of course, I can guarantee with my badge that everything I say is true. Tom Schneider didn't back down. Well, very good, Mr. Prosecutor. Your courage is admirable. Then you might as well look at this again. Boom! Suddenly, a low roar attracted everyone's attention, and everyone couldn't help but turn around and look behind. On the other side of the street, a huge electronic screen gradually rises into the air, and then the screen lights up. Even in the daytime, it can be seen clearly. Just when everyone wondered what was going on, the scene immediately switched to the video of the police wreaking havoc. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then reacted, and the scene instantly fell into a sea of exclamation and anger. Tom Schneider only felt a cool breath rushing to the heavens, and his eyes were dark, as if someone had punched him in the head.